Chapter 16. As days passed, they were both getting more and more frustrated, but not for the same reasons. Naruto was getting worried. Sasuke hadn't remembered anything recently. Sasuke, on the other hand, had been drilling into his head he doesn't want anything more than friendship, over and over. Soon he thought he would be repeating it in his sleep like a mantra. Naruto, however, had deemed it safe and dropped his guard, completely relaxing around Sasuke once more. Naruto completely trusted Sasuke and no longer flinched away from the raven if Sasuke spotted him getting out the shower. Sasuke noticed the blonde making ramen, which was probably Naruto's idea of a balanced breakfast. "Dobi, can't you get anything else?" he grumbled. Sasuke wasn't really bothered about the ramen, he was just in a bad mood being unable to show his true feelings around the blonde. Naruto looked at Sasuke and thought for a moment. "Well, I could go out and buy you something different if you really wanted," he said. "I could also find Sakura and talk to her. She's the only one who knows that you're back, and that you've forgotten me. She could convince Kiba not to pop round randomly like he usually does, you know? If he sees you, he would tell everyone else. There would be some problems then." Naruto laughed, wondering how Kiba would react if he saw Sasuke now, sitting in his kitchen complaining about the food. Sasuke agreed, glad at the prospect of something other than ramen and not having to explain things he couldn't remember rightly to the people he had betrayed. Without Naruto around, the blonde's home became pretty boring and lonely. Sasuke couldn't believe how the atmosphere became gloomy the moment Naruto left. Naruto could light up any room. Sasuke sighed, hoping Naruto would come back soon. He wished he hadn't complained about the ramen in a futile attempt to release some suppressed anger about what was really bothering him. The raven slouched down on the sofa, sighing again. This was probably the reason why, when Naruto got back, Sasuke had fallen asleep on the sofa. Naruto smiled as he stared at Sasuke, sprawled out on the sofa, arms dangling over the edge. He didn't think his Sasuke would be caught looking so undignified. "Sasuke, come look what I got you," Naruto called, walking into the kitchen. The raven didn't move, he seemed to be in a deep sleep. Sasuke's dream X. Sasuke remembered this. He knew this was something he had forgotten. It all seemed so familiar yet, he couldn't describe it. It was a strange feeling, having his memories piece themselves together. Naruto was standing in front of him. He reached out for the blonde, but recoiled in fear. The blonde's features were rapidly changing. The beautiful blue eyes Sasuke had, not long ago, stared into change to a blood red with black slits. The blonde was growing claws, fangs, he looked like a demon. That was all he could think of to describe this thing before him. Naruto was speaking, yet he could only catch some of it. Break every bone in your body." Sasuke watched as the scene played out in front of him. Naruto was attacking him. Naruto was a demon. Kyuubi. Naruto was the Kyuubi. How could he have forgotten that his so-called friend was actually the very demon that nearly wiped out the village all those years ago? And the fact Naruto tried to kill him? XN Dream X. Demon. Sasuke snarled, jumping awake. His last dream about Naruto had been a memory, so this one probably was too. The blonde shot into the room, worry clear on his face. "What's wrong?" he asked. Sasuke jumped away from the blonde, staring at him warily. "You're a demon, aren't you?" he hissed, pointing a finger accusingly at Naruto, seeing the blonde in a whole new light. The blonde looked at Sasuke sadly. He couldn't deny that he had a demon sealed inside him. "You're the Kyuubi. I saw you in my dream, attacking me. Trying to kill me." Anger filled up inside Naruto. The blonde could tell Sasuke had seen the memory of when he had tried stopping the raven from going to Orochimaru. He didn't seem to have the whole story though. Sasuke's theory was proven as Naruto's eyes bled a deep crimson. Naruto couldn't help that from happening when he got angry. Anger was an emotion that seemed to rouse the Kyuubi. Sasuke fled to the other side of the room. "It is true. You tried to kill me, monster." Sasuke missed the fleeting pain that flickered in Naruto's, now blue, eyes. They quickly changed red again, reflecting Naruto's anger. "How dare you? That was the only way of stopping you from going to Orochimaru, you traitor. I suppose your dream didn't show the part where you stabbed me with the Chidori? Or the part where you were telling me you had to kill me to obtain the Mangekyo Sharingan?" Sasuke simply stared at Naruto. "Did you happen to see the part where you just left me to die? Because I would have died. It was just lucky for me Kakashi had followed us. As things pieced themselves together in Sasuke's mind, he knew everything Naruto had said was true. Then he remembered something else. Naruto, lying beneath him in the rain. Then kissing him gently and wishing he hadn't released his curse seal. Then walking away and leaving Naruto, just like the blonde had said. When he looked up, he noticed Naruto and left the room. A loud slam told Sasuke Naruto was at least still in the house. Sasuke knew he had always liked the blonde, and now he knew for certain that his part with Memories had feelings for Naruto too. This only made things harder, knowing he had promised Naruto he wouldn't touch him again. He went upstairs and knocked on Naruto's door. He always seemed to be upsetting the blonde. "Naruto? I'm sorry." Sasuke heard a snort from inside the room. "Now you want to talk to the demon? Aren't you scared I'm, as you put it, planning to kill you?" Naruto hissed, in a mocking voice. The lock clicked and the door opened. "Naruto, I was being stupid. I remember what happened now," Sasuke said, walking into the room. "Feeling guilty now?" The blonde snapped. Sasuke nodded slowly. "I don't understand. If I tried to kill you, why are you trying to turn me back into that person?" Naruto opened the door a little more. "I don't know really. He was my best friend, he just got a little lost. I couldn't compare, the village couldn't compare, to the power Orochimaru was offering." Naruto laughed bitterly. "I feel stupid saying this to you. You should know," he murmured. "Naruto, I should have known that you wouldn't have hurt me. But, I've been remembering more. It won't be long before I remember you completely, then things will be back to normal." Naruto smiled weakly. "Yeah." Naruto came out of the room and walked downstairs. "I'll show you what I brought you," he said quickly. Sasuke sadly followed Naruto. It seemed all he could do lately was cause trouble for the blonde. Naruto frowned at Sasuke's expression. "What, you don't like onigiri? That's strange, Sasuke always did." Naruto's expression brightened. "No matter, I got some other things just in case." Naruto dug his hands in the shopping bag and produced something else. "See? How about you try this?" Sasuke let out a strange noise. "No?" Naruto looked in the bag again. When he looked up, the chair Sasuke had been sitting on was empty. Confused, Naruto peered over the table and found Sasuke slumped on the floor. "Sasuke?" The blonde jumped over to the raven. "Sasuke? Wake up," he said worriedly. "NNH, feel strange." Naruto pulled Sasuke onto his lap. "What do you mean, strange? You're scaring me, Sasuke." The blonde bit his lip and watched as Sasuke's eyes slid in and out of focus. Naruto's worry increased when Sasuke went limp in his arms. Sasuke? Naruto panicked, he couldn't take this. It was just like last time. Sasuke couldn't leave him again, not when he was so close to getting his Sasuke back. He picked up the raven and rushed him to the Hokage's office. Knocking over Tsunade's sake in his haste, Naruto placed Sasuke on the Hokage's desk. He just collapsed. He explained, giving the Hokage no time to say anything. "Help him." The blonde wailed. The Hokage nodded as she looked over Sasuke. She pulled back one of Sasuke's eyelids and took a look at Sasuke's eye. She pulled away and then watched as the raven twitched and groaned. "Do something." Naruto wailed /. Naruto shouted, wondering why the Hokage wasn't acting as fast as she should. "Naruto, I have very good news. This seems to be exactly what we were waiting for. I believe, when Sasuke wakes, he will be the Sasuke we all remember." Tsunade read Naruto's expression. "He's completely fine, I assure you. He just collapsed due to the strain his brain has of processing all the new information it is now receiving," she said calmly and gently. Naruto's terror subsided. As if to finish her sentence, the raven twitched again. This was one of the many ways his memory could have returned. "I will have a bed prepared for him, just so I can check him over once he wakes." Naruto looked up at her, his eyes shining with hope and delight. "He's going to be my Sasuke again." Chapter 17. Naruto's heart leapt when he felt the hand he was currently holding in his own move slightly. "Sasuke." The raven opened his eyes, but shut them again quickly after. "Wake up, please," Naruto begged, hoping Sasuke could hear him. The raven's eyes flickered open again and rested on Naruto. "Dobi?" he murmured. A smile slid on Sasuke's face as memories collected together. "Lord, letting him come back. Falling and losing his wings. Waking up to Naruto's face was defiantly something he wanted to get used to. Considering how blindingly white it had been in the Court of Angels, Sasuke was surprised to find his eyes stinging as he opened them fully. "Sasuke, please remember me, please," Naruto whispered desperately. At hearing his name from Naruto, Sasuke forced himself to keep his eyes open. "Remember you?" Sasuke asked, confused. "Who couldn't remember someone as loud as you, Baka?" This confirmed things for Naruto. Only a response like that could have come from his Sasuke. No one else spoke to him like that. Naruto decided that no one had the right to speak to him like that except Sasuke. He launched himself on top of Sasuke, grabbing the raven round the middle and hugging him. "Sasuke, it was horrible, you came back and you didn't remember me." Sasuke pulled Naruto away so he could question the blonde relieved. "What do you mean, Dobi?" he asked. "You forgot me. Everything. You remembered everything except me, Sakura, Orochimaru, Itachi, well, everyone." Sasuke told Naruto to calm down and explain again. "You were found just outside Konoha about a month ago." The blonde elaborated. When his wings had started burning, Sasuke had no longer had any control of direction. He supposed outside Konoha was where he had landed. "You were brought back to the hospital. Sakura told me you were back and brought me to see you. When I got there, you didn't have a clue who I was. Your mind had gone all weird. Everything had been altered to exclude me from your life, every single memory. Ba-chan made you live with me because she said staying around me would help trigger back your memories." Sasuke sighed with relief. This must have been the consequence Lord Sama had forewarned him about. This meant it was all over. He was now free to be with Naruto. He smiled wider and reached out for Naruto's hand. The blonde had started crying again. "Hey, it's alright, Dobi. I'm back now. That's all that matters." The blonde nodded and fell into Sasuke's arms. Sasuke smirked into Naruto's blonde hair. Everything was going exactly the way he wanted it to. He held the blonde tighter, wondering when would be the right time to admit his feelings for Naruto. "Sasuke, why did you, I don't understand, you died." Naruto had been meaning to ask Sasuke how he was still living, but something that seemed more important to Naruto made the blonde change his question. "Sasuke, why did you sacrifice yourself for me?" "Why?" he asked. Sasuke decided to answer truthfully, deciding the perfect opportunity had opened up to admit the feelings he had for the blonde. "That is something we would all like to know." Naruto's head whipped round at the familiar voice. It was Tsunade. The Hokage approached Sasuke. "Feeling all right?" Sasuke nodded, cursing her terrible timing. She had just ruined the perfect moment he and Naruto had been sharing. "I trust you have a plausible explanation as to why you are still alive?" Fortunately, Sasuke had already prepared an excuse. The moment he knew it would be possible to get back to Naruto, he had known his death would be difficult to lie about. He would break his agreement with Lord if he said something like, "I became a guardian angel, but was allowed to come back to life." It wouldn't be too convincing either. "Yes, Hokage-sama, I do," he replied as respectfully as he could. He waited for a curt nod from the Hokage until he continued. "Orochimaru placed a powerful jutsu on me that would prevent me from dying until he had full control over my body. This was merely because he couldn't stand the thought of me being in danger. He decided I was the perfect container for his soul and didn't want such a perfect specimen to be damaged." Sasuke paused and glanced at Naruto. He believed I was truly blinded by the power he was offering. He obviously didn't expect me to betray him. The Hokage's eyes narrowed. "So, basically, you didn't sacrifice yourself for Naruto. You knew the jutsu would protect you." This was the only reason she had overlooked punishment, this fact he had been willing to die for Naruto. Knowing he wouldn't die was a completely different thing when the heroic and admirable act of giving his own life for Naruto was merely giving one of probably many lives the jutsu provided. Sasuke hadn't thought of this. He knew there had been no such jutsu, but it had been the best excuse he had been able to think of that the Hokage would believe. He needed to think fast if he wanted Naruto to know that he did actually risk his life for him. Normally, he wouldn't want to sound so boastful, but he really did want Naruto to know how much he meant to him. "That's wrong," he protested calmly. He decided not to elaborate until he was asked to, buying himself more thinking time. Unfortunately, he still felt a little groggy from just waking up and the Hokage seemed very impatient. "Well?" she demanded impatiently. "I didn't actually know Orochimaru had used the jutsu," he blurted out. The lie was quickly forming on his tongue. Orochimaru said he may use the jutsu, but he never gave any indication that he had. He found himself becoming more and more fluent as the lie mapped out in his head. Personally, I didn't think Orochimaru would take such a gamble. He knew there was always a possibility I could betray him. Obviously he did use it, otherwise I wouldn't be here now. The Hokage nodded slowly, thinking about everything Sasuke had said. In that case, I thank you. He looked up at the Hokage questioningly. For risking yourself to save Naruto. The Hokage decided that was too much praise for the Uchiha who had abandoned her son. Then again, Naruto may not have been in that situation in the first place if you hadn't left the village for Orochimaru in the first place. She added quickly. No. Naruto's voice interrupted the annoyed tone of the Hokage's. Don't say that. Sasuke saved me, which means he's truly sorry for leaving the village. I'm just glad he's here. That's all I want, all I ever wanted, so please don't blame him. We all make bad choices. The blonde said quietly. Sasuke's inner self was dancing happily at what Naruto had said. Naruto's words were dripping with emotion and he was very determined to defend Sasuke. The Hokage looked at Sasuke, then Naruto. Her gaze went back to Sasuke and lingered on the raven. I suggest you start letting the village know you are back. I have other things to attend to. She informed them, walking out of the room. Sasuke swore he heard Naruto mutter, yeah, like a bottle of sake. Naruto let his head rest on Sasuke's chest and let out a contented sigh. I just want to know, why? Sasuke knew what Naruto wanted to know. Why did you sacrifice yourself for me? I thought you hated me, and now I don't know. Sasuke pulled away from Naruto and made the blonde sit on the bed in front of him. He stared in Naruto's eyes. The perfect atmosphere was creeping back into the room. This is why, Sasuke said quietly, before pressing his lips against Naruto's gently. He took Naruto's hands in his own just before pulling away from the blonde. I love you, Sasuke said. Naruto pulled away from Sasuke, looking horrified. The raven wondered if it had been too much too soon. Oh no, not you too. The blonde moaned. Naruto backed to the other side of the room. Sasuke climbed out of the bed and immediately fell backwards. He felt far too light without his wings on his back. Just like when he had first received them, he had felt completely imbalanced. Sasuke got to his feet and steadied himself. What do you mean, not me too? Sasuke asked. Naruto stared at the floor. When you had no memories, you kept kissing me and telling me you liked me. I thought it was just part of your wacky new mind. I thought that the real you would never. He looked up at Sasuke. I guess I'm just going to have to tell you the same thing. Sasuke, I'm sorry but I don't like you in that way. Sasuke took a moment to take in what Naruto was saying. He had been so sure Naruto had liked him back. The way the blonde had acted when Sasuke had been watching over him had confirmed the raven's thoughts, the crying, the longing, the self-harming. Were they really actions of a mourning friend? But. Sasuke stared at the blonde pleadingly. He couldn't have gone through all this just to be rejected by Naruto now. Why don't you like me in that way? Why not? Sasuke asked. He had never had any problems like this before. Everyone seemed to fall at his feet. Look, I don't like guys. The blonde laughed nervously. That doesn't mean I have a problem with you, not at all. I'm just saying I don't like you in that way. I'm sorry. Can we still be friends? Naruto asked. Before the rational side of Sasuke's brain could kick in and accept Naruto's friendship in a last attempt to be able to be close to the blonde, the raven spoke with his heart for once and not his head. You don't understand. I love you. I know I'm not unattractive, so that can't be the problem. Sasuke, it's not that. I just don't feel for you what you want me to. You're my best friend, nothing more. Rejection was something the raven hadn't experienced before, he wasn't liking it. Can't you try? He asked, a little desperate, something which the raven had never been in his life. Naruto sighed sadly at the raven. Try and love you? Do you really want me to be with you out of pity? Look. I'm flattered, really I am, but no. I won't offer anything other than friendship. Sasuke nodded numbly. Naruto looked down at his feet. This had been awkward the first time he had to tell Sasuke he didn't have feelings for him, let alone the second. He was glad he had handled the situation so calmly. This was probably because he had already dealt with this before when Sasuke couldn't remember him. I'll see you later, Sasuke, Naruto said, breaking the silence. He walked out the room, giving Sasuke a small smile. Sasuke sat back down on the bed. The one person he loved had just flat out rejected him. This was unacceptable. There was no way he would allow this. If Naruto wasn't with him, then he would end up with someone else and Sasuke wouldn't be able to stand that. No one else would have his Naruto. No one else could love Naruto the way he could, the Raven was sure of that. Sasuke had quickly come to a decision: Naruto was his, and an Uchiha always got what they wanted. Sasuke would get Naruto the only way he knew how, by force. Chapter 18. Sasuke pushed forward a briefcase on the table. Naruto stared at it wonderingly. The Raven had requested to meet him, and Naruto had accepted, wondering if the Raven was going to perhaps apologize for yesterday. Sasuke ran his fingers over the cool leather of the case. Sasuke really had nothing else to lose now. "Dobi, sit down," he said quietly. Naruto sat in the chair in front of the desk Sasuke was stood behind and eyed the Raven nervously. Naruto looked around, he had never seen this room in Sasuke's house before. Naruto eyed the case, which Sasuke was staring at too. Naruto watched curiously as Sasuke opened the briefcase. Sasuke smirked as Naruto's jaw dropped. The blonde's reaction was exactly as he had predicted and wanted it to be. The case was filled with money. More money than Naruto had probably ever seen in his entire life. That's a lot of money, Sasuke. What are you going to do with it?" Naruto asked, in awe. Sasuke chuckled. "I think the question is, what are you going to do with this money, Naruto?" The blonde's eyes widened and fell, once again, on the money. "What exactly would you do for all this, Dobi?" he asked. Naruto stared at Sasuke. "Anything," Naruto said. Even though this amount of money was nothing to the Raven, Naruto was already forming plans in his head. He could buy a new house with that. Unlimited ramen, anything. The blonde stared at the money dreamily. Sasuke smirked. "In that case, this is yours." Naruto gaped. "In return for one thing. I believe it will be a completely fair transaction," he said. Naruto nodded eagerly. He didn't know what Sasuke would want, but he didn't really have much he would object to giving the Raven for that amount of money. Sasuke leaned forward as Naruto tried to touch the money. The case closed with a loud snap, which made Naruto jump and look up at Sasuke, waiting for the Raven's request. "I want you to sleep with me." Naruto's eyes widened almost comically. "What? You heard me. If you sleep with me, just once, all this." He gestured to the case. "Is yours." "Why you mean like say?" Naruto took a deep breath, trying to calm himself down. "With you?" Sasuke nodded curly, not liking how utterly disgusted the blonde looked. "I can't believe you, Sasuke. I can't believe you're that desperate. There is no way I'm going to do that for money. Not now, not ever." Sasuke hadn't expected this. He thought quickly. "I'll double it then," he said calmly, his voice reflecting none of his inner anger. Naruto didn't respond. "Whatever I have in here, I will double," the Raven repeated. He knew it would only be a matter of seconds before Naruto agreed. After all, who could possibly turn down this amount of money? "My God, Sasuke, look at yourself. You're crazy to think I would ever do that. It's called dignity. Good luck with finding somewhere to buy that from, Sasuke," Naruto shouted. Sasuke stepped forward with a snarl. "Everyone has a price, Naruto, including you," he growled. Naruto shook his head sadly. "I'm never going to love you, or sleep with you for that matter. Just find someone else. They would probably pay you for sleeping with them." "Don't you get it, Dobi?" Sasuke snarled. "I don't want anyone else, I want you. Please don't do anything like this again, Sasuke. You're not stupid. The next time I see you, I hope you've actually realized how crazy you look." Sasuke watched as Naruto walked away. The Raven couldn't believe this was happening. His final plan had failed. The last thing he could hope for was a friendship with the blonde. He jumped over the desk and shot after the blonde. I was only joking." Sasuke lied quickly. Naruto stopped and turned around to face Sasuke. "No, you weren't. I could tell," he mumbled. "Naruto, I don't want my feelings for you to come in the way of our friendship. We can still be friends, right?" Naruto hesitated slightly before nodding. "Of course. As long as you don't." "I swear I won't," Sasuke said quickly. Naruto seemed very dubious. Before, when he didn't have memories of the blonde, Sasuke had betrayed his promise not to do anything to Naruto that the blonde considered inappropriate. Then again, this Sasuke was the Sasuke he could trust. One he had grown up with. Naruto smiled. Sasuke smiled back at Naruto, a little forced though. At least I got to kiss you. Just once, Sasuke said quietly. Technically, you kissed me about 4 times if you count what your other self did, Naruto said jokingly, trying to lighten the chilly atmosphere between them. Sasuke sighed, wishing he could remember the other kisses they had apparently shared. Naruto noticed that his joke hadn't lightened the mood in the slightest. Sasuke, I know how hard it must be ignoring and suppressing your feelings, but I want to thank you for it. Sasuke looked up. Because I really want us to be friends still. Sasuke smiled again, though it was still forced and felt more like a grimace.
I should go.
Naruto muttered. Even though Sasuke valued his friendship with Naruto, he knew he couldn't, give up. Sasuke had always got exactly what he wanted. As an Uchiha, he was the pride of the village. He had more money than anyone else in Konoha. If he wasn't given what he wanted, he could buy it. His father had taught him that from a very young age, and Sasuke had always remembered it. Sasuke flopped down on his bed and snorted, remembering Itachi's friends. The Raven knew they weren't around Itachi because they had liked his brother's company. Sasuke had seen it. Fugaku, his father, having a heated conversation with Itachi's best friend, Shisui. This was around the time Itachi had been becoming more and more isolated. He became colder towards everyone, including Sasuke. The Raven snorted again, wondering if, at that time, Itachi was planning to ruin his life and kill the entire family. Flashback X. Fugaku placed his hand heavily on Shizu's shoulder. Mikoto and I have not seen you recently. I trust everything is well? He asked. Shizu's eyes narrowed. You know damn well everything isn't, he shouted. Fugaku looked around worriedly, checking to see if anyone had heard Shizu's raised voice. Itachi has been under a lot of stress recently. He has been overworked, and... That's a lie, Shisui said coldly. Meaning no disrespect, but your son is a bloody lunatic. I refuse to be around him any longer, and I would appreciate it if you took your hand off my shoulder. He added. Fugaku moved away from Shisui, his face turning slightly purple though suppressed rage. He quickly composed himself. I accept that Itachi has changed recently, however he does not need to be alone right now. He could do with you being around him more. Shisui smirked at Fugaku. You're scared of him, aren't you? You know as well as I do he's mad and you've lost control over him. You expect me to try and force some humanity into him. Fugaku's expression darkened. He needs you. He growled. Shisui refused again. Young Sasuke watched from the shadows. Worried, he had ventured outside to find out why he heard shouting. His father's head whipped around again, and Sasuke shrank back, remaining unseen by the 2 dark figures he had been watching. Satisfied no one except Shisui would hear what he said next, Fugaku spoke. How much? He growled. Pardon? Fugaku gave Shisui a moment to understand his proposition. My son appears to be in a dark place at the moment. I trust you to bring him back. He thinks of you as an older brother. Guide him. Sasuke watched quietly as his father pulled something from his pocket. For a wild moment, Sasuke wondered if his father was going to attack his brother's friend. In the dark, Sasuke could see a small rectangular-shaped book in Fugaku's hand. The book was followed by a pen. His father had obviously planned this. Fugaku began writing something and Shizu's eyes widened. You're going to be there for Itachi, aren't you? He asked, ripping a piece of paper from the book and handing it to Shisui. The next day, Shisui had arrived at the house, smiling happily and asking for Itachi. XN Flashback X. Obviously his father had been much more successful. He had literally bought Shizu's friendship for Itachi. His father got what he wanted, even if Itachi getting closer to Shisui result in Itachi killing his friend. Then obtaining the Mangekyo and killing the entire Uchiha family, except Sasuke. This is why Sasuke couldn't understand why he had failed. Fugaku used bribery. He thought about another person he knew could get exactly what he wanted. Orochimaru. Ignoring the fact that one of his 2 leading role models was an ex-Akatsuki member and a cold-blooded killer, Sasuke decided he would abandon his father's more peaceful ways and resort to the snake Sanin's ways. Sheer force. If Naruto wouldn't love him voluntarily, he would make Naruto love him. 725 Chapter 19. Sasuke was going to use a jutsu that had been invented by Orochimaru himself. The Sannin was very creative when it came to luring people to him, then filling them with his twisted goals. Sometimes Orochimaru blinded his victim with the offer of power, like he had done with Sasuke. Another method was to draw in the victim by lust. A clever jutsu Orochimaru had created could make anyone the Sannin desired lust after him. Sasuke shuddered, thankful the lure of power had been enough for him and Orochimaru hadn't resorted to lust to obtain his latest container. He decided he would only need to make a few adjustments of his own to make it perfect to use on Naruto. Then the blonde would be his. When Sasuke was sure the jutsu would work the way he wanted it to on Naruto, he went out to find his prize. Once he spotted the blonde talking to Sakura, he decided to conveniently walk by and catch Naruto's attention. "Hey, Sasuke." The Raven looked over to Naruto and faked surprise, as if he had only just seen Naruto. "I was just telling Sakura you were back," Naruto explained as Sasuke walked over to them both. "Hello Sasuke-kun," Sakura said quietly. The Raven stared at her. "HN." Sakura looked thoughtfully at Sasuke. He still seemed as cold as usual. She found it hard to believe he had risked his life to save Naruto. "Sasuke-kun, do you remember how you died?" she asked. Sasuke took a deep breath. He didn't really want to explain again. The Hokage had asked him things he hadn't bargained on and the lie had formed as he had spoken. He didn't really fancy his chances remembering exactly what he had told them. If he got something wrong, it could expose his lie as exactly what it was, a lie. Then he would have to make up something else, avoiding the truth to keep Lord Sama happy. "It's a long story," he muttered. "Naruto, you tell her." The blonde nodded, recalling what Sasuke had said. Basically, Orochimaru wanted to protect his precious container, so he used some weird jutsu thingy that made it so Sasuke wouldn't die. It didn't sound very convincing the way Naruto had explained it, yet Sasuke supposed it would do for now. "You told Tsunade-sama about this?" "She was very eager to know," Sakura said. Eager was one way to put it. The Hokage had been ranting to Sakura the whole time about how she didn't like or trust the Uchiha, and how she was looking forward to how Sasuke explained his miraculous return. "Yes, I told her. Naruto, I want to talk to you." Sakura didn't move. She obviously hadn't got Sasuke's hint. "Alone?" he added through gritted teeth. Oh. Well, I'll tell everyone else that you're back, if you like." "That would save a lot of time," Sasuke said. "Thank you," he added. When she had left, Sasuke turned to Naruto. "So, team, what is it you want?" he asked, slightly annoyed the Raven had sent Sakura away so quickly. He thought the Raven would at least be happy to see her, yet Sasuke had stayed as impassive towards her as ever. Sasuke was surprised by his tone. "I only wanted to talk," he said defensively. "Then why did you send Sakura away?" he asked. The blonde crossed his arms and pouted. "I was going to ask her if she wanted to go on a date with me." Sasuke forced his jaw shut to stop himself from saying something he might regret later. Naruto suddenly realized what he had said. "Sasuke, I'm sorry, you," Sasuke sneered at the blonde. "What? Now you realize that you're flaunting the fact that others can have you and I can't?" The blonde looked nervously at the ground. I didn't mean to be so insensitive," Sasuke snapped. "Or maybe you just didn't think, Dobi, because you seem to be good at that." Sasuke turned away from the blonde and formed the hand seals he had practiced. He did it so quickly Naruto didn't even notice. A few muttered words, then Sasuke turned around to look at the blonde triumphantly. Naruto looked slightly dazed. What were we just talking about?" he asked confusedly, blinking rapidly. Sasuke smirked. "You were just saying about how you were going to ask Sakura out, even though you knew about the feelings I had for you," Sasuke said As in, he didn't feel the same way anymore. Naruto looked at Sasuke, filling with panic. Had? Sasuke had never been so close to laughing before. "Yes, he hissed, his voice filled with fake malice. "You made it perfectly obvious you weren't interested. I decided to move on, so we can be just friends. Like you wanted." Naruto didn't know what to say. Yes, that's good. What I wanted. Right. Obviously the jutsu worked gradually, Sasuke decided. This could be good, he would have a little more time to play with Naruto, making the blonde think about what he had refused. "Anyway, I have things to do. I might see you tomorrow, Dobi," he said. As he turned, he felt Naruto grab his wrist. The blonde let go as soon as he noticed what he had done, jumping back slightly. Yes? And nothing. Sasuke smirked again. There must have been something, for you to grab me like that. Naruto looked up at Sasuke, and as he stared into the raven's dark eyes, he couldn't stop himself from blushing. I was just thinking that, well, perhaps you wanted to do something? The blonde stared at the floor. He couldn't understand why he was suddenly feeling so different around Sasuke. Do something? That's very vague, Naruto, he said, looking down at the blushing blonde. Sasuke smirked, liking this new development. He placed his hand gently on Naruto's chin and tilted the blonde's head up. As soon as Sasuke touched him, Naruto turned an even deeper crimson. Sasu. Dobi? You're all red, are you feeling all right? He asked. The blonde nodded fervently and moved away from Sasuke slightly. The raven decided he would have to find more ways to make Naruto blush. Naruto seemed to have calmed down while Sasuke had been thinking. Sorry, I have to go. He muttered. I'll see you tomorrow. He added. Sasuke watched as Naruto hurried off. He wondered if Naruto could possibly be resisting the jutsu, or it was just taking a little while to work. The latter was confirmed later that night. Whoa! Sasuke wasn't normally taken by surprise by anything, but finding the object of his desires in his house at night was an exception. Naruto? The blonde had slipped in through the window and was clinging onto the doorframe, fidgeting and looking around nervously. Naruto? Naruto's attention snapped back to Sasuke. What? He asked. Sasuke looked at Naruto disbelievingly. What? I should be asking what? As in, what the hell are you doing here? Naruto immediately looked upset. Are you mad with me? He asked worriedly. What are you doing here, Dobi? He asked. Naruto looked down at his feet with a, as Sasuke named it, adorable blush creeping back onto his face. I don't actually know, he said quietly. Sasuke hid the grin that was threatening to form on his face. You don't know why you're here? Sasuke repeated. There must be some reason you're in my house in the middle of the night. Naruto's eyes were still darting around the room, he was desperately trying to avoid Sasuke. The blonde bit his lip and looked up at Sasuke. I don't understand why I'm feeling like this, I don't even know what I'm doing here, Sasuke. The blonde looked up with pleading eyes. Sasuke only just managed to contain his glee. You're not making any sense, he said. Naruto stepped forward. I just needed to see you. He finished. Sasuke moved closer to Naruto, knowing it would drive the blonde mad while Naruto was so desperately trying to sort out his rampant emotions. Sasuke was so close. Naruto pressed his lips against Sasuke. He pulled away from Sasuke a second later. His mouth opened in an attempt to explain himself, but Naruto could think of anything to say. Sasuke glowered at the blonde. What the hell? He snarled. What kind of sick game are you playing? Naruto still looked confused. I tell you I love you, so you reject me. That's fine, I can handle that, but now are you deliberately trying to hurt me? Naruto shook his head. I'm sorry, I'm just really confused. I think I like you too. Naruto admitted. Like me, Sasuke said coldly. What does that mean? Naruto's eyes filled with tears and he grabbed onto Sasuke's shirt. I'm so confused, I've never felt like this before. Sasuke wrapped his arms around the blonde. Felt like what? He asked. Naruto pulled away slightly and looked up at Sasuke. You know you said you L. The blonde looked down again. Loved you? Sasuke supplied. Naruto nodded and then looked up again. I've never loved anyone before and there hasn't really been anyone who's looked past the QB, so you're the first person to actually tell me that. When you first told me I couldn't believe that you would like me, I suppose I wasn't too thrilled. But now, I really like you, Sasuke. Sasuke pulled Naruto close to him. This was so Naruto couldn't see the smirk spreading across his face. So you've never been in a relationship with anyone before? He asked. Sasuke heard a mumbled no through his shirt. He had known Naruto was a virgin, but he had presumed Naruto had at least had a girlfriend or two during the time he was with Orochimaru. He couldn't believe Naruto was so innocent, and all his. The blonde didn't seem to be completely under his control yet and Sasuke wanted to see just how strong the jutsu was. He pulled away from Naruto. You're probably just confused because I said I loved you. You should go home. Sasuke, you want me, right? Naruto asked. No, Naruto, I don't. You've already rejected me and I've already got over you. It's alright, we can be friends like you wanted. What if I said I think I was wrong in rejecting you? Naruto asked quietly. I must have just been ignoring them, 'cause feelings like this don't just pop up suddenly. Naruto stared at Sasuke lustfully for a moment. Can I kiss you? The blonde asked. Sasuke moved away from Naruto. What the hell, Dobi? Can I kiss you? What kind of question is that? Look, you had your chance with me. Perhaps you should have realized these feelings you say you have for me when I was begging for a chance with you. He snarled. Sasuke knew he was being completely cruel to the blonde, but no one rejects an Uchiha and gets away with it. Just leave, he said coldly. Sasuke, I don't know why I didn't realize this earlier too, but I do like you, I do. Naruto pleaded. I'll repeat myself, you had your chance. Now get out. He pushed the blonde out of his room, ignoring the devastated look on Naruto's face. He shoved Naruto out and locked his bedroom door. A minute later, he heard his front door click, telling him Naruto had left. Sasuke had followed Naruto's chakra trail back to the blonde's house. The Raven noticed that Naruto wasn't going into his own room. He entered the room filled with Sasuke's things. The Raven supposed this had been the room he had been staying in. He smirked as Naruto climbed into the bed. The blonde breathed deeply, he could still smell Sasuke's scent on the pillow. Why don't you love me anymore? The blonde asked the empty room. Sasuke watched as Naruto lay in the bed thinking. Minutes later, the blonde got up, pulled a kunai from his weapon pouch and went into the bathroom, locking the door behind him. Sasuke's insides lurched. When he had been watching over Naruto, this had meant only one thing. What the hell had he been thinking taunting Naruto like that, knowing full well he was under a jutsu? He forced the window open, jumped inside, and ran straight to the bathroom. Naruto? Sasuke forced he not to sound panicked. At hearing his name come from the Raven, the blonde dropped the kunai he had poised over his wrist and scrambled across room to open the door. Sasuke? Why are you here? He asked. The blonde waited for an answer, his eyes shining with hope. I decided I was perhaps a little out of order with what I said earlier. Naruto shook his head. No, it's fine, I understand why you were mad. I mean, it was my fault for not getting my head together sooner. That way perhaps I would have figured out how I felt about you in the beginning. Then I wouldn't have hurt you. His eyes trailed down guiltily. I shouldn't have said it, Sasuke said finally. Yes, when you rejected me it hurt, but I do still want to be with you and I'm sure you won't do anything like that again. Naruto smiled widely. Of course I won't. He assured Sasuke. You want to be with me? Sasuke nodded. As long as you're sure and won't change your mind or something, he said. I'm sure about my feelings, he said confidently. Sasuke smirked, a plan forming in his head. Aren't you going to prove it then? He asked, pulling Naruto out of the bathroom doorway. Naruto looked up at Sasuke for a moment, then pressed his lips against Sasuke's. He pulled away, but Sasuke was still looking expectant. Naruto leaned in and kissed him again. The blonde felt Sasuke's tongue slip into his mouth. The Raven pulled him to the bedroom the blonde had recently been in and pushed Naruto onto the bed. He began kissing Naruto again, and the blonde didn't protest until he felt Sasuke's hands traveling confidently downwards. The blonde moved his head sideways, breaking the kiss. He then pushed Sasuke's hands away. I'm not sure about this, Sasuke. Don't you think we're going a bit too fast? He said. The Raven ignored him and pulled off the blonde's shirt. He carried on undressing the blonde. Naruto desperately tried not to complain, but he wanted to show Sasuke he was sure about their relationship. When he felt Sasuke tug at his boxers, Naruto pushed him off. I'm sorry, but I'm not ready for that yet, he said. Sasuke's lustful look turned to an accusing glare. What, am I not good enough for you? He snapped. Naruto bit his lip. And no, it's not that, I thought that maybe, could take things a little slower? He asked tentatively. Naruto was so scared of losing Sasuke. As he watched Sasuke's expression turn to one of disgust. Slower? Why don't we just forget this? Obviously you're not sure, he snapped. Sasuke knew he was being unreasonable, but the jutsu was supposed to make Naruto want him. Yet the blonde lying under him was clearly having doubts. Don't be like that, I'm just not ready. Naruto protested, hoping Sasuke would understand. The Raven couldn't believe it. Naruto was not under his control. Naruto, you are ready, He hissed at the blonde, taking his own shirt off. He grabbed Naruto's wrists, pinning him down. And no. Sasuke, stop. Please don't make me. Now the blonde was full out protesting. It seemed the jutsu was getting weaker. Sasuke remembered he hadn't used its full power, yet he thought it would have been enough. He gripped Naruto tighter and forcefully kissed him. The raven was suddenly thrown across the room. He looked up and was met with angry blue eyes. They were no longer shining with lust, or love for the raven. What the hell did you do to me? The blonde roared. Chapter 20. Sasuke looked at Naruto disbelievingly. What? You drugged me? The blonde accused. Or something, because I know whatever that was, it wasn't me. Naruto began pulling his clothes on furiously. What did you do? He asked again. The jutsu had broken, and now Naruto was back to thinking normally. The raven didn't answer Naruto's question. I can't believe you. My best friend would actually drug me, to take advantage of me. He screamed. Sasuke wondered if he could salvage anything from this situation. I didn't. The furious blonde knew Sasuke was trying to deny exactly what he had done and refused to let Sasuke finish his sentence. Bullshit. Don't you dare try and get out of this. I can remember everything. I congratulate you. It must have been something pretty powerful to get me to fawn over you like a lovesick puppy. Naruto snarled. Something in Sasuke's memory surfaced and he suddenly felt rather angry with Naruto. You didn't need to be under a jutsu when you thought I was dead to mope around, longing for me. Naruto's eyes narrowed. Fortunately for Sasuke, the blonde was too enraged to notice the strange fact that Sasuke knew how depressed he had been while the raven had thought to be dead. Jutsu? So that's it. Every person has limits, Sasuke, and I've just about reached mine. I don't ever want to see you again. Get out. He tried pushing Sasuke out of his room. The raven simply lunged at the blonde, throwing him back onto the bed. There is no way I have gone through all this just for it to end now. Sasuke screamed. Naruto fought to get away from Sasuke. Get off me, bastard. Sasuke's hand closed around the blonde's throat. It wasn't supposed to be this way. You are mine. Sasuke snarled. Naruto grabbed Sasuke's wrist and tried pulling the raven's hand away from his throat. Sasuke, Naruto whimpered. Sasuke was choking him. Bright lights were clouding his vision. The blonde felt himself getting weaker and his hand slipped away from Sasuke's. You were supposed to love me, the way I love you. The raven simply gripped on tighter. Naruto felt everything slipping away. He felt something wet drip on his face. Was Sasuke crying? I love you, the blonde mouthed up at the raven, his eyes slipping shut. Shocked, Sasuke immediately let go. He could already see finger-shaped bruises forming on Naruto's neck. Naruto woke up to a concerned face. Sakura? He asked weakly. Naruto decided he wouldn't take again soon, his throat hurt like hell. You've finally come round then? I'm wondering if I should heal you at all, she scolded. Naruto looked up at her, confusion clear on his face. Fighting? With Sasuke-kun? You two really need to grow up. I don't see how ripping chunks out of each other is anything but pointless and childish. It took a moment for everything to piece together in Naruto's mind. Fighting? Naruto croaked. Sakura sighed, feeling less angry at Naruto's tone. Oh, don't sound so sorry for yourself. Here. She placed her hand gently over Naruto's neck. Naruto felt the tightness disappear. Thank you, he said, the pain gone. Next time, I won't heal you. You two really need to sort things out. She warned. Naruto looked at the floor sadly. I think I should go, he mumbled. Naruto? He asked gently. What's wrong? She asked. He flashed her his famous fake grin, the one only Sasuke had ever seen past. Nothing, I'm just thinking I should apologize to Sasuke. You know, for fighting. Sakura nodded in approval. Naruto went home and let himself fall onto his bed. He pulled a small book from under his bed and began writing in it. Naruto. The blonde's head shot up. He saw Sasuke standing in the doorway. Get out. Naruto growled, shutting the book and dropping it on the bed. Sasuke ignored the blonde and walked into the room. Naruto jumped off the bed and backed into a corner. Naruto, I'm not here to hurt you, Sasuke said. The blonde threw Sasuke a look that clearly told the raven he didn't sound too convincing. I'm sorry about strangling me? Naruto supplied angry. Yeah, I bet you are. Sasuke moved forward a little more. I really am, Naruto. I love you. The blonde grimaced. Don't say it. I feel sick just hearing that come from you. You don't love me, Sasuke. If you loved me, you would have respected the fact that I don't like you in that way, not force me with some jutsu. If you loved me, you wouldn't have tried to strangle me. Sasuke looked really guilty. I didn't mean to do that. You mean you didn't bargain on your jutsu failing, that's what? What would you have done, Sasuke, if I had stayed under the jutsu? Live the rest of your life and ruin the rest of mine under your sick little delusion? I don't think I would have carried it on forever. I just wanted you to love me, at least for a little while. Shut up. You wouldn't know love if it hit you in the face. The blonde snarled. Normal people just take rejection, get over it, find someone else, end of story. But you force yourself on me. You try and bribe me with money so I will sleep with you. That doesn't work, so you put a jutsu on me. You disgust me, Sasuke. You love me, Naruto, you have too, Sasuke insisted. Naruto stared at Sasuke. Stop being so pathetic and get out. I hope you never love again, for other people's sake. Sasuke shook his head and didn't leave. You told me you loved me. You mouthed it at me, I saw you. Naruto glared at him. Refresh my memory, was this before or after you were strangling me? It was just before you passed out, Sasuke mumbled, guilt filling him again. I said that, because I was hoping it would shock you into letting me breathe again, Naruto hissed. You said you never wanted to see me again. The raven said, advancing on the blonde. Naruto backed away nervously. Yes. And I mean it, he said. I offered you friendship, Sasuke. I was willing to ignore whatever crazy feelings you think you have for me and be your friend. But now? I don't want to be anywhere near you. I can't trust you and I don't like you. Would it be too much to ask for you to just leave me alone? Naruto tried to appeal to Sasuke's more reasonable side. I can't. We've been through so much, Naruto, I can't walk away from you now. The blonde rolled his eyes. Don't make it sound like I actually feel the same way about you. I don't. I'm not into guys. If you really loved me, you'd let me go, not try and force feelings that aren't there. Naruto noticed how close Sasuke was. I'll win back your friendship, Naruto. I can't not see you again. You'll be trying for a long time, Naruto said. Sasuke kissed the blonde lightly on the lips and moved away quickly. I don't care. I won't ever give up on you, he said quietly, before walking out of the room. It was a while before Naruto decided to move. He stayed frozen on the spot trying to understand what had just happened. He remembered how desperate Sasuke had been when he had rejected the raven. He had never seen Sasuke like that before. He sat on the bed and sighed, running his fingers through his hair worriedly. He had never been in a situation like this before. He was angry with Sasuke and he knew it would be difficult to be around the raven now. Sasuke had never shown any interest in anyone before. Girls had been throwing themselves at his feet, yet Sasuke hadn't bothered with any of them. It was almost like he didn't notice them. Every girl he met liked him, including Sakura. Naruto groaned. Could it be possible that Sasuke actually loved him that much? So much so he would become desperate enough to force a relationship through a jutsu? Naruto just didn't understand why Sasuke couldn't have just accepted rejection. The blonde shook his head and flopped down on the bed. He shut his eyes and tried not to think about it anymore. I don't care. I won't ever give up on you. The raven had sounded so sincere. Naruto could tell how determined Sasuke had been. Naruto had felt exactly the same way when he had been fighting to get Sasuke back from Orochimaru. He rolled over and hoped Sasuke would leave him alone. Things were getting out of hand. 725 Chapter 21. Ah, Naruto, it's okay. Your meal has already been paid for. The blonde frowned and put away his money. Already paid for? What do you mean? He asked, looking down at his empty ramen bowl. He told me he wanted to remain nameless, but he donated a generous amount to pay for whatever you eat in the future. The chopsticks Naruto was holding snapped in two and the splintered pieces fell into the empty bowl. Nameless? The blonde hissed angrily. I'm gonna kill that bastard. He growled. The man backed away slightly. I'm sure he was only trying to be nice, he said quietly. The blonde flew off his stood and ran out of view. The blonde was on his way to find Sasuke, but ran straight into the raven. Were you looking for me? The raven asked. Naruto jumped away and sneered at Sasuke. Of course not, he snapped. Sasuke smirked. Oh, then why were you muttering my name under your breath as you walked? He inquired slyly. Naruto blinked. What's with you? He snarled. Why the hell did you pay for all my ramen when I don't even like you? I don't think you got the message that you can't buy me, or my friendship. I'm not trying to buy you, I'm trying to show you how sorry I am. Sasuke replied. The blonde laughed bitterly. You're not showing how sorry you are. Money is nothing to you. You've got so much you could buy this village about 5 times over and still have more than enough left. I think you're exaggerating, Naruto. You're pathetic. I can't believe you're still using money. To Sasuke held something under Naruto's nose. The blonde looked at it for a second. Before Naruto could question what it was, Sasuke explained. You're worried if you accept my friendship I might try and hurt you again, or force myself on you. This will suppress my chakra. It looked like a small silver bracelet. Sasuke pressed it against his wrist and it fixed on with a click. It glowed red for a second, and Naruto felt Sasuke's fade until he couldn't sense it anymore. The raven handed Naruto a key. Only you can remove it now, which means I'm completely harmless. Naruto didn't take the small gold key Sasuke was holding out. That's only partly the reason I don't want you around me. Firstly, I would have to forgive you for putting me under a jutsu that would have made me unable to control my actions and feelings for probably the rest of my life. Then I would have to forgive you for nearly killing me. It's a lot to forget, Sasuke. The blonde mumbled. But could you? You mean everything to me, Naruto. I don't want to lose you. The blonde took the key, grabbed Sasuke's wrist and unlocked the bracelet. It expanded and slipped off Sasuke's wrist. As he felt Sasuke's chakra return, the blonde dropped the key. It landed on the floor with a soft thud next to the bracelet. Just leave me alone, he said, before walking away. Naruto had been close to forgiving Sasuke, and the raven could tell. This made him even more determined to win Naruto's friendship again. He looked down at the bracelet before walking away, leaving it on the ground. Naruto had immediately taken it off his wrist. Sasuke hoped this was a small sign of trust. The raven wondered what he would do next to show Naruto there could still be friendship between them. Wow! Naruto jumped back, pointing wildly. Who the hell are you? What are you doing with my TV? Another 2 men dressed in green walked past Naruto. They were carrying the blonde sofa out of the house. Burglars! Naruto screeched. Another 3 men passed him carrying various things. Hey! Give me back my table. He was ignored. Naruto ran into his living room bewildered, wondering if there were any more people in his house. Don't make me hurt you, because I swear I won't. In place of his old television was a much bigger and more expensive looking one. What? He tripped backwards and landed on a soft, comfortable sofa. Much softer, much more comfortable and much bigger than he remembered. He looked behind him. Gah! He jumped up again. I can't afford all this. The men in green reappeared carrying a new coffee table. Where do you want this? The blonde blinked. That is a nice table, so, you can just turn around and give me my old one back. The table was put in the middle of the room exactly where the old one had been. Arg, you're not listening. Naruto complained. We're done in the kitchen. Naruto's head snapped in the opposite direction where the voice had come from. Kitchen? He groaned worriedly. A man carrying a clipboard and a pen approached Naruto. It was held out to the blonde. Sign here to prove you got what you ordered. He drawled. I didn't order this stuff. He protested, as the pen was shoved in his hand. Look, buddy. Just sign on the line and we can all go home. I didn't. The clipboard was shoved under Naruto's nose. It says right here you did. Naruto Uzumaki, right? Naruto nodded. Good, here. He was handed the pen again. I can't afford all this. That's not our problem. Sign it. Naruto frowned. Of course it's your problem. The blonde snapped. The man in front of him looked tired, and was getting very impatient. He saw groups of men, like the others dressed in green, walk past and out the door. How many people were in his house? And how the hell did they get in here in the first place? You ordered this and have already paid for it. It's not our problem now. So, I need proof you received everything you ordered. Sign it. Naruto took the pen slowly. Already, paid? The man opened his mouth and was about to argue with the blonde. All right. Naruto snarled and wrote his signature angrily on the paper. The man nodded curtly and walked out the door. Naruto stood in the room seething. Sasuke, he hissed. He walked into his kitchen, dreading what he was going to see. For a minute, he wondered if he was still in his house. His entire kitchen had been changed. Some may say it looked better, but Naruto was far too angry to register that fact. He opened one cupboard, muttering under his breath about people touching his things, wondering if everything was still there. The blonde blinked. The entire cupboard was filled with ramen. Naruto slammed it shut, not letting himself be tempted. Pushing away the urge to try out the new flavors he had seen, he stormed into the hallway and in the process tripped up on something. What the hell? He snarled. Golf clubs? You approve? Naruto whirled around and was met by a smirking Sasuke. I don't know how you got those men in my house, or how you got all this crap in here so quickly, but you are going to call them back and get this out of here and have them bring my stuff back. Naruto ordered. Sasuke raised an eyebrow. You can't seriously want all that junk back? Naruto glowered. You have no right taking my stuff like that. I mean, it's not even thoughtful. Naruto gestured to the golf clubs. I don't even play golf, he hissed. I was going to teach you. Naruto pulled out one of the golf clubs and walked into the living room. He stood next to the new plasma TV. Get rid of it, before I do it myself. The blonde shouted. Sasuke didn't move. The blonde threw the club at the TV. When that broke, he picked up the club and dangled it threateningly over the brand new glass coffee table. You might be able to get your money back on this at the minute, so I suggest you call whoever brought it here, back. The Raven didn't seem bothered at all. I'll get you a new one if you like. He nodded towards the TV. The blonde dropped the golf club. It smashed right through the table. Get out, he hissed. I'm only trying to H. Well, you're not. You're just making me angrier. Get out. Sasuke didn't move. Out. The blonde snarled. He shoved Sasuke out the door. And take your shit with you. He added, flinging the club out with Sasuke. The Raven easily dodged it. It landed with a clatter beside Sasuke. The Raven sighed as Naruto's front door slammed. He heard an angry shout, which meant Naruto had discovered his new bed. He decided he would leave it a while before trying again. This blonde hadn't appreciated his latest attempt at earning back friendship. And definitely cancel the new car from getting here, he added as an afterthought. Chapter 22. Sasuke sighed and stared at the blank page he had in front of him. He was trying to collate all the ideas he had of gaining Naruto's friendship, yet he had come up with nothing so far. He thought for a moment. He could always fake his death. He wrote that down. It would gain Naruto's forgiveness instantly, the blonde would feel so guilty. He sighed and crossed it out. That's stupid. He muttered. He would need to come up with a whole, believable, excuse as to how he would miraculously come to life again when he decided the blonde was feeling guilty enough. Besides, he thought, crossing out the idea vigorously again, considering he had died once already, it would be less plausible already. He pressed the pen against the paper and wrote, money. He could always keep buying Naruto things until the blonde felt indebted to him, and then accept his friendship simply to make him stop. He sighed and crossed that out too. So far, it had been a complete failure and had only managed to make Naruto even angrier than he already was. Sasuke dropped the pen on the desk. The answer suddenly became clear. The Raven had been so blinded by gaining Naruto's friendship in sneaky, underhanded ways, he had completely missed the best and most honest idea. He would simply let the blonde know how sorry he was by telling him. Over and over if it didn't work the first time. He would grovel until Naruto accepted his friendship. Just for good measure, he wrote grovel on the paper and ticked it with a smirk before putting the paper in a desk drawer. Naruto opened the door, silently begging it not to be Sasuke. His plea wasn't answered as he saw Sasuke stood right in front of him. He glared at the Raven. I've got the rest of the golf clubs if you want to be hit with one. He offered coldly. Naruto, please can we just be friends? I swear I won't keep offering you money, or doing stupid, ignorant and annoying things like that to make you feel uncomfortable. All I want is friendship and I'm so sorry for the things I've done. I was just trying to get you to accept my apology. He looked up at the blonde, his eyes begging. Please, he added. Naruto shook his head. You were going to take advantage of me while I was under that jutsu, Sasuke. Then you tried to kill me. I wasn't thinking straight. Sasuke pleaded. You have to remember Naruto, I didn't have a childhood like everyone else. I was brought up to be an emotionless, flawless, perfect mini Itachi. Sasuke mentally slapped himself on the forehead. He was supposed to be pouring his heart out to the blonde and mini Itachi was the best he could come up with? He continued anyway. So, when I fell for you it was all new feelings to me, then when you rejected me, that was new too. He stared at the ground. Naruto pulled him in the house and pushed him down on the sofa. You're letting me in? Sasuke asked. He was quite surprised, he had expected it to take a lot more groveling than that. The blonde rolled his eyes and sat next to the raven. The amount of stuff you've bought me this house is practically half yours anyway. He muttered. You were saying? Just before Itachi murdered my family he had started to isolate himself from everyone. My father, to be honest, was obviously scared of what Itachi was capable of. He thought if Itachi's friend was around him more it would help pull him out of, as my father put it, this dark place he said his precious Itachi was in. Naruto noticed how he spat the word precious. Late one night I heard shouting. I went to see what was going on. In short, I saw my father bribing Shisui, Itachi's friend, with money so he would put up with Itachi's weirdness and be around him more, Sasuke sighed. Naturally, rejection was something an Uchiha didn't stand for, so I did, as I knew. Then I used the jutsu. You can't blame your father for that. Naruto pointed out, not liking the way Sasuke was blaming everyone but himself for his actions. No. When I was with Orochimaru, he used that lust jutsu to control anyone he wanted. Just like my father, he was another person I knew who got exactly what he wanted. So, I simply changed the jutsu a bit and, well, yeah. Naruto sat up a bit, interested. Changed it? He asked. Sasuke nodded. Yes. In its original form it turns the person you used it on to a mindless zombie filled with nothing but lust. I wanted to feel something between us so I weakened it, hoping it would more persuade you to love me. I don't know what I was thinking using in the first place. I'm just so sorry, can you forgive me? He asked quietly. They both went quiet as Naruto thought over his answer carefully. Oh okay. But I hope you realize, things aren't going to be like they were. And it's going to be a while before I can fully forget what you did. Sasuke nodded and thanked the blonde. After that, silence lingered in the room. But I'm not apologizing for the TV. Naruto added. You shouldn't have bought it in the first place, he said with a small smile. The mood lightened and Sasuke smiled back a bit. Or the table. But. He looked Sasuke over. The, golf club didn't hit you, did it? Naruto asked nervously. Sasuke raised an eyebrow. You saw for yourself it didn't. Sasuke told him. Naruto rubbed the back of his neck sheepishly. No, I didn't. I just threw you in the club out then slammed the door, kind of hoping it would hit you and you would get the message. Sasuke smiled a bit more. Dobi. He muttered. I can have things put back the way they were if you wanted to. He told Naruto. The blonde thought for a moment. That would be good. Except. Except what? Sasuke encouraged Naruto to finish. Except the bed, Naruto said. It's way better than my old one, and way bigger too. Sasuke smirked. All right then. Everything except the bed. The silence crept back. Naruto cleared his throat. Okay then. You better go, he said. The raven didn't argue. He knew he would have to be careful with what he did and said to Naruto in the future to maintain their now very delicate friendship. The blonde had decided it would be better if he and Sasuke had a little time apart. Things were edgy as they were without him allowing Sasuke to be around him all the time like the raven obviously wanted to. Naruto sighed. He was probably the only friend Sasuke had. All Naruto's friends would be willing to accept Sasuke due to the respect they now held for him when he saved the blonde's life. Naruto knew, however, that Sasuke wouldn't want to get to know them though. Sasuke just wasn't a sociable person. That made the blonde feel even guiltier about avoiding Sasuke, but the raven had to learn to meet other people and not just be around the blonde all the time. Naruto heard a knock on the door. Ah! He jumped under the table, begging for it not to be Sasuke. Oi, Naruto. The blonde let out a sigh of relief. That was definitely not Sasuke. He crawled out from underneath the table and answered the door. He pulled Kiba into the house quickly, slamming the door shut behind them both hoping Sasuke wasn't lurking around waiting for Naruto to open the door. He wouldn't put it past the raven. Kiba eyed the nervous-looking Naruto. Is something wrong? He asked slowly. Naruto sighed with relief again and locked the door. He walked into the living room and slid onto the sofa. Kiba followed him. Man, when did you get all this cool stuff? The dog lover commented. Naruto groaned. Don't want to talk about it. He grumbled into his hands. Why is the TV broken? And the table? Did you have a fight? Kiba asked. Naruto wondered which question to answer first. The things are broken because I threw a golf club at them. Naruto replied, completely honestly. Kiba noted the new sofa and sat on the expensive piece of furniture warily. Naruto laughed as Kiba refused to let Orochimaru out of his jacket and sit on the sofa like he usually would. It's fine, Kiba, Naruto said, amused. He reached over and pulled the dog from Kiba, putting the animal on the sofa. It's leather. He'll only scratch it up and it looks new. Kiba argued. Naruto put his feet on the sofa and stretched out. It doesn't matter. I'm not keeping it for long anyway, so Orochimaru can wreck it for all I care. Kiba relaxed, but looked at Naruto with confusion. I haven't seen much of you recently. Sakura also told me Sasuke was alive. What the hell is going on? He asked. Naruto studied Kiba for a moment. It would be great to tell his friend the truth, so he had someone to confide in. If I tell you something I haven't told anyone else, would you keep it a secret? Kiba nodded enthusiastically. Sure, man. You know me. He added eagerly. The blonde took a deep breath. Well, when Sasuke came back he completely lost his memory of me. His entire memory had been changed to exclude me from it. Someone obviously didn't want him to remember me. Freaky. The dog lover breathed. Everything except you? He asked. The blonde nodded again. Yeah. He remembered everything normally, with a slight change to exclude me. Ba-chan made him stay with me, she said it would trigger his memory. But Naruto began tracing circles on the cool leather of the sofa. Sasuke was really different and weird. He started telling me he loved me, and kissing me and stuff like that. Kiba's eyes looked ready to pop out of his head. WW for real? Yeah. I thought it would go away when he remembered everything and went back to normal, but it didn't. Of course, I refused every offer he made. But then, he offered me all this money, to get me to sleep with him. Naruto laughed at Kiba's expression. The dog lover was completely horrified. Yup. It's true. I refused that, so he used a jutsu he learned from Orochimaru on me to make me fall in love with him. I fought it off and told him I didn't want anything to do with him. Then he kept apologizing. He gestured around the room. This was his idea of saying sorry. Naruto muttered. I got really pissed and threw a golf club at the TV and dropped one on the table hoping he would get the message. Eventually he just begged. I told him we could be friends and nothing more. Kiba breathed out dramatically. Whoa. I think the crazy snake guy addled his brain. Naruto nodded, smiling. You shouldn't have forgiven him, Naruto. He doesn't deserve it. I don't know, I'm avoiding him at the moment. I'm just going to see where things go. Naruto stopped drawing patterns on the sofa and let his hand drop into his lap. I'm glad I could tell you. It's been a real bitch keeping it to myself. Kiba smiled. No problem. From now on, I'm your official bodyguard. I won't let Sasuke within an inch of you. He promised. Naruto laughed. That would be very helpful. But remember, don't tell anyone. Kiba nodded, a strange look spreading across his face. What? The blonde asked nervously, as Kiba thought, a dangerous and rare feat for his dog-loving friend. You don't have any feelings back for Sasuke then? He asked. The blonde's jaw dropped. What? Are you mad? He screeched, sending Orochimaru running back to the safety of Kiba's jacket. Hey! Sorry. Naruto muttered, poking the lump in Kiba's jacket earning a growl. But, what on earth would make you ask that? He asked, much calmer. Kiba shrugged. The way you reacted when Sasuke had left. Then when we all thought he had died for you, you were devastated, man. Naruto's expression darkened. Kiba didn't even know the half of it, he thought bitterly. It was guilt. The blonde said. Kiba rolled his eyes. Has Sasuke sent you? He asked, half joking. Kiba laughed. You're probably right. Anyone could make you, he poked Naruto playfully. Mr. Gullible, feeling guilty for anything. Anyway, I can make you forget all about the bastard, he said, grabbing Naruto by the hand. The blonde looked puzzled. In the way we do best. Naruto understood immediately and smiled. Alcohol, and lots of it.